So I'm quite passionate about this TDD business, and I find this description, it's okay, I mean this is what it is, you write a failing test, you make it pass, you refactor, etc. But I quite like this diagram a bit more, because it shows that you make it pass and you don't forget this refactoring step, and also you kind of write a failing test, make it pass, and then you refactor, keeping the things green all the time. And that's where the design comes in. So people often say Agile guys don't do architecture, but when you work in this way, when most of your time is spent refactoring, I think I have a little thing, when most of your time is spent refactoring, pretty much all you are doing is designing. You're redesigning by doing little refactorings at a time. Yes?
Have you tried any continuous testing tools, like Crunch, that rerun the tests the whole time without you having to run them?
No, but I think that's what we'll move on to. Yeah, and I think there's auto test in Cucumber or something like that, in Ruby, and I think there's one for .NET. So, but which is the one you?
I haven't used it. I thought you might have used it, because if you're refactoring the whole time, it's a pain to have to refactor, run tests, refactor, run tests. If you can be doing it in the background for you.
Okay, yeah, that could be useful, especially if the tests take a long time to run. I can imagine that would be a very good thing to have. Okay, so we have architects in software development, and in my opinion, what we do is we ask them to come up with big plans at the start, and it feels like we ask them to be fortune tellers. If they work in this way, where they're continuously refactoring, they basically have evidence for the decisions that they're making. So we know, okay, there's a bit of code duplication, or this code's not working out for whatever reason. Using things like the stats, where we see methods that are too long, then we know that there's evidence that there's a problem, and we also kind of have proof that you've now solved that at a later stage. I also think of architects as gardeners. They should continuously be maintaining the code, not just at the beginning and then go away and leave the poor developers alone. And if they want to be called architects, they should really behave like building architects, the good ones, like these guys. These guys actually designed this building, the Chinese Central Television headquarters. They designed the Seattle Public Library. Also, yeah, the insides are pretty much as nice as the outsides. And the way these guys work is by creating, they say that, the repeating process. They say creating requires architects to recollect, to recycle, to interpret, and to repeat, to redefine and reassemble. In this process of doing this, new ideas spark the designer's imagination, new shapes emerge. And when you do something, it doesn't have to be like this formal BDD, but even TDD. If you're doing this flow from high-level thoughts to low-level thoughts, you will start to realize things. And if you take the time, you'll realize it before it's too late, before you have a massive pile of tests that it can be a bit dangerous if your tests build up and you're doing the wrong thing, then sometimes you don't want to change it because now you have to change all your tests. But if you give yourself time and spend time refactoring it, it really pays off. Okay, and they show it here as well in this diagram, where they have an idea, they build a model, next idea, build a model, and it's like a refining. It doesn't even have to be incremental, sometimes it's just iterative, where you keep reworking what you've done and it gets slightly better and better each time. And this is an example of some of their models. All of this is just for one building. They also have different types of models, such as, what do they call it, early models and later models and final model, and finally they get the building. So our architects should do the same thing. It's not just one sit down or the first 2 months of the project coming up with some great design. It's continuously improving. Yeah, it gets to me a bit when people say that we don't do architecture and we don't do documentation, as if we're these just wild cowboys running in. They are those guys, but they're not. Things don't end up in a good way usually. And these guys on this project have done a lot of documentation. They've even done a user manual to help with testing and to help users when they start using the system, and they show how our third-party supplier, how that data is then interpreted and shown in the Excel spreadsheet. And we also have things like a timeline to help us manage things happening between between our third-party supplier and what we were doing. There's our cumulative flow diagram, and I think as we go on, I think more and more things would have ended up here. We used Excel to, one of the things I said I was going to talk about was tools to help Scrum or help your process. We used a spreadsheet, a very basic one, but I think you should use something like Excel just to collect these sorts of stats. Put everything else up on the wall, even your whole backlog. Make one of these story maps so you have a two-dimensional backlog and stick it all up. And if things start to fall off, just don't even pick them up, let them be sucked up by a vacuum cleaner because they probably weren't that important. But that's the idea. I would say put everything on the wall and you won't end up with thousands of stories that you have to keep maintaining. And people can see what's going on. So basically don't use a tool, use a wall. So what's this waterfall project? This is what I've been asked a few times by friends and people at the company. And okay, what people really mean is, was it a sequentially run project? And we've seen already that we did a lot of stuff concurrently. At the end, this could have been, I think going forwards, even now, we are being more concurrent. So we see more things in UAT and in development and stuff changing on our backlog. But you could argue, okay, especially this project looks a bit more sequential. And yeah, maybe just our requirements were a bit concurrent, but fair enough. Yeah. Was it an agile project? The best thing to do, well, often people talk about being more agile and what does it actually mean, all this stuff, but that's why I would like to go back to the Agile Manifesto and also the 12 principles behind the Agile Manifesto, which are things like our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software, and we certainly did that. Welcome changing requirements, we actually pushed for changing requirements. Deliver working software frequently, we did our best with that, and I think it says a couple of weeks to a couple of months, we came in just under 2 months, which counts, check. Business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project, we did that, build the projects around motivated individuals, and I think these guys were motivated. The most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and with the development team is face-to-face. We try to do more of that than emailing and phone calls. And basically, I think we achieved all of these. We've already pointed out this one about simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done. And this one, the best architectures and requirements and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. Something I haven't mentioned is that I was not the Scrum Master on this project, because usually a Scrum Master's job is to remove impediments. And actually, Tim took the lead for a lot of these problems we were having with our third-party supplier, and he actually just solved it. So that he did a good job with that, and I could carry on working on doing as little as possible on this project, which was quite nice. At regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective. Then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. And we did have a couple of retrospectives, and I think with retrospectives you want to plan them in advance so that they don't become what do they call it, what's it called when you're finding out why somebody died or something like that? Post-mortem. Yeah, just schedule them ahead of time. Otherwise they get like this, like we're doing this now to find out what went wrong, when it should be planned ahead of time and you just go in and there's a nice way of doing it called the starfish model. If you just Google retrospective starfish, you'll find this thing where it's a nice way of saying what things you're going to improve on. Something we haven't spoken about actually is the use of points on this project. Do you want to say how you felt about the points during sprint planning?
So we estimated the stories and they had a point values used. Actually we did small, medium, large, didn't we?
Yeah.
But I think the point Darren's getting at is that during the project, and this was also because there was only 2 developers working on it, but I had no concept of what the points were for each story or how many points we had left or anything like that. We were just working as we wanted to.
Then on this project, the points, I think we all feel have become less and less important.
Yeah.
And we'd be more happy, say, worrying about the fact that we do 3 stories in a sprint, or that's increasing as we see. Yeah. We would rather say, okay, maybe there's 10 stories left, we're doing 3 a sprint. That means, should have said 9. There's 3 sprints, or maybe 3.5 sprints left.
The velocity was per story more than points. Some
things we could have done better. We could have looked at this we had some issues with the XML that was being supplied to us by a third-party supplier, and we could have just gone to a browser and put the URL in and seen it and examined it, I think. It's easy to do these things once you've done it, but I think it's also important because then you know maybe the next time we can do something like that. We could have used story mapping to try to maybe formalize our early releases. We also had some problem after we deployed that our users couldn't use it because of some environmental issues. So maybe we could have just deployed basically an empty spreadsheet or something that just showed a message box. Then we would have known earlier that there was a problem. Okay. So was it waterfall, was it agile? Probably we should ask because success is probably more important. So this is from the chaos report where they say a successful project is a project that comes in on time, on budget, and with all the features as initially specified. Mike Cohn says one of my criteria for a failed project would certainly be a project on which no one came up with any better ideas than was on the original list of requirements. So he doesn't agree with us at all.
Do you agree with that first one?
Who asked?
No, me.
Oh, right. No, I don't agree with this because I think, it's much better, obviously, if we come up with better ideas during the project. It's this whole idea of evidence, and I think Dan North talks about deliberate discovery, where you do things specifically to learn and reduce your ignorance, he calls it. He has a lot of issues with ignorance. This whole business about not knowing what you don't know, doing something like that.
For the first one, you have to work off a technical documentation.
All right, for this thing.
I.e., from a technical documentation, you achieve project on time and on budget.
Really?
Well, it says initially specified, right? Which implies that you've got a...
Exactly. You work off a technical documentation, you don't change anything.
So it could succeed even if it's not in the end. It's not useful. It's not what they want.
It came in on time and budget.
It's on time and budget, and all the
It could
features
be,
are technical.
well, that could be considered a successful project, but maybe not a product. Successful product. Maybe they're two different things.
So I guess the next question would be, what percentage of projects do come in with all the features as initially specified that still coming on time and on budget? Majority of them actually going to run over, right?
It was a very low percentage, I can't remember if it was 18 or 38, but...
Like 2 out of 3 projects that run over, don't they?
2 out of 3.
It's like crazy.
Okay. An even more sort of strict way of judging whether the project was a success or not is what these guys have to say. I think probably the hardest one is this, or the one which a lot of projects don't achieve, is this future orientation. So while delivering products and new features today, teams build skills and capabilities for the future. And on this project, we did do some testing for the first time. We used SpecFlow and coded UI for real on project. And we did some fancy stuff with handling XML, which is also common in the company. So near the end, we had a kind of a knowledge share where we showed people what we had done, and I think people did learn a bit from that. So I would put a check here. I think the rest we achieved as well. And of course, probably the best thing to do is ask the product owner or the user, which in our case is the same thing, if they liked it or not, if they thought the project was successful. Now our product owner had this to say. The project has been run very successfully from my perspective. I felt involved in the whole process, and the team have made a real effort to ensure that the development has met our requirements. I've been consulted along the way and kept informed of what has been happening. I think that this has been really useful for me, as I am then able to give feedback to the team where we are with development, which gives everybody confidence that we are moving towards the goal.
A goal.
A goal.
Whatever that might be.
Doesn't mention anything about cookies.
No, she didn't. But she really enjoyed that. Okay, that is it. That's